specifically to something that Scott said right in his response. And again, yeah, I wasn't criticizing Scott for using the money in the dealership. What I was criticizing was his attacking me for supporting something that provided him the ability to use that money, which he opted to do. Let's be clear. Look, Scott and I are going to disagree on who's the best candidate in this race. There's no question about that. We're going to tell you on our TV and other advertisements who we think you should vote for, who's the best one. But let's look at what third-party organizations that you know talk about. 13 News did an ad watch. They looked at the question of how I voted on the bailouts, and they said that my ad was true. It had a big red stamp on it. I wasn't in Congress when the program first started, but it was one of the first votes I took in January of 2009 was whether or not we were going to fund that program.
Totally symbolic. These are totally symbolic.
And that was my vote.
I want to get too deep.
And also, let me make one more thing. Wavy TV10 did their own ad watch on Scott Rigell's response ad on the Cash for Clunkers issue, and they said that 2 of his claims made in his ad were false. Again, this is independent organizations saying this, not me, so take their word for it.
Okay, let me ask, I want to get to the stimulus program for a second, because I'm going to ask this question to you. I'm going to ask this to you.
Let me clarify a couple things. I wouldn't have taken the money in cash for Clunkers. I think it was a bad program. I wouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't have voted for it either. So there.
I want to ask a question about the stimulus program, because we were in bad shape here when that stimulus program was passed. And one supposed failure of the stimulus program, as you have cited in your ads, is that the unemployment rate still remains around 10%. You said it's gone up 14% or something in Virginia, I think was what's said in your ad. But Robert Samuelson, who's a conservative economist, wrote recently that, quote, without government's aggressive response, gross domestic product would have dropped 12% instead of 4%, and 16.6 million jobs would have been lost instead of 8.4 million. That's from Mark Zaney of Moody's Analytics, who I think has spoken to this group before. Unemployment would have hit 16%. So even though things aren't as good as we all would like it to be.
Joe, you're buying into revisionist history. You can find an economist that'll make that kind of point.
This is a conservative economist. This is not
I
an
can show you 10 others. I was doing
economist.
we were navigating all right through that recession until, frankly, that stimulus bill came along. People will walk for $200 in a car dealership. They'd certainly walk for $4,500. I mean, where do you think we would have been? We would have been at a $4,500 cash disadvantage. I really think it reflects a deep misunderstanding of how business works. And our profit margin is around, half the time it's around 0 right now.
Well, what was government's role at that period? I guess that's my question. What should have been government's role? Should it have been to do nothing?
No, we did need to do something. We just did the wrong thing. Even the president is beginning to second guess himself. I'll give you the article after this debate. You can see he was saying, you know, we probably should have done more of what the Republicans said, which was to have more tax credits. I'm not saying we should not have done anything. I'm not a party of no guy. I'm a party of ideas. I'm just saying I believe in the American entrepreneur. I don't believe in bigger government. If you believe in bigger government, you want massive government intervention and massive deficit spending, I'm not your guy. But for the people who know the heart and the soul of the American people is in the spirit of our entrepreneurs, unleashing their ability to go out and to create jobs, then I'm your man.
All right, Congressman, now you want to respond?
I do. Look, and if I misquote you, Scott, please tell me that I'm not right. And Scott just said, and I think you were talking about his dealership, we were doing all right. We were doing all right in this recession until the stimulus came along. And I think he's talking about his dealership, not the general economy. What I want to say is, if you look at where we were at that time, and again, leadership is about taking tough decisions at the moment. Looking back is always a lot easier. Look at where we were at the time. Beginning of 2009, when I first swore into Congress and took on this great responsibility, economists, not just Zandy, left, right, and center, across the board, Democratic, Republican, everything in between, were saying our economy was in trouble, in the danger of going off a cliff into a depression the likes of which none of us had ever seen. Now, we can argue about whether or not we took exactly the right approach. We had to make decisions then. I made a decision to do something to try to help the economy. Again, it's a program that, I know Scott says he doesn't like it, but he used it, okay? Even Governor McDonnell said that the stimulus helped. Are we where we want to be today? not yet. We have more work to do. That's why what's important is that we look forward about ways that we can continue to help the economy grow, unlock capital for our local small businesses to be able to get that loan, to make those hires and get themselves growing. Working on continuing to cut taxes for small businesses. That's what I've been working hard to do, and I'm going to work to continue to do. I'm actually leading the charge to extend all the tax cuts right now so that our businesses can plan and have that ability to know going forward that their taxes aren't going to go up. These are the reasons why I've been endorsed by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the National Federation of Independent Business. And again, at the end of the day, an endorsement's an endorsement from one independent organization or two. I'm looking for your endorsement in this race. Voters are smart, you all are smart. You're going to make an informed decision about who you think on this table is the best person going forward to represent your interests and fight for the needs of the Hampton Roads community, including our small businesses. I'm the one that has a track record of doing that that's been recognized by others.
Stimulus program, Kenny Garland. You get 2 minutes.
Great.
Kenny, I wore the NBA tie for you.
I love
a
you.
big
Wah,
one.
woo, wah. And I'm sorry, Hokies, if you're out there. But I was close to it. I was recruited by Frank Beamer, but, went the other way.
Made the right choice.
Yeah, I know. The stimulus program was not focused in the right direction. It should have been focused on what they said it was going to be, which was shovel-ready jobs. It was not. And it was not focused on, you just brought it up, liquidity. The liquidity of the country was in the toilet, and that's why entrepreneurs couldn't get loans, people couldn't get loans, and you're right. We should have provided money, cash incentive, not cash incentives, but tax incentives to buy new cars. I would have bought a new truck if you'd have given me a $2,000 tax exempt to go and buy a new pickup truck. Instead, I'm riding around that 1990 Ford pickup truck I did buy at the Beach Ford, I'm sorry.
I'm sure he would have given you a $2,000 cut on that.
Barnes are supporting you, by the way.
Well, I am driving the 1993 I bought from you in 95, so, you got to give me credit there. But it was focused in the wrong direction. And that's the problem we had with it. And I disagree with the economist because he said, well, if we did that, we would have had 16%. Randy Forbes put out some charts that talks about all of the things that have happened. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's thousands of jobs have been lost. I think it's like 95,000 of jobs that have been lost since the stimulus was passed. And that is a damning number that shows it did not work, it has not worked, and will not work in this current environment.
All right, let me change the topic and you get to answer this question first, Kenny Golden. This last week, a U.S. District Judge in California, Virginia Phillips, ruled that don't ask, don't tell is unconstitutional because it infringes on the due process and free speech rights of gay service members who are forced to lie about central elements of their lives. The Obama administration is now going to court and appealing this ruling, even though they themselves oppose don't ask, don't tell, and want to see it thrown out. The House has voted to end don't ask, don't tell. The Senate has not. Are you happy that a judge has made this decision for Congress, or did you want to go to Washington and vote on that yourself?
Well, I wrote a press release about it when it came out a couple months ago, and I said I disagreed with Chairman Mullins. I know Chairman Mullins, he's a friend, but I disagree with him. Don't ask, don't tell. In my 14 years of command, I discharged 5 people. 3 of them were in Japan and wanted to come home, and so they came in and said, Captain, I'm gay. I had no choice. I had to let them go. The other 2 were for misconduct. As a matter of fact, one of them was my steward, and he was groping people in the berthing areas, and you don't think I got a lot of grief for that when I had to get him off the ship.
True stories of the U.S. Navy.
Yeah, I know. The captain, has he been groping you? No. But 5 people in 14 years of command. Don't ask, don't tell works for. So for her to say you have to lie, it's don't ask, don't tell, and we don't care. We don't care. A guy asked me yesterday, so what happens when you go, if you're a male, and you have to go to the Navy ball and you want to take your male friend? I said, knock yourself out, bud. It just doesn't matter because it should be renamed, don't ask, don't tell, and don't care. The thing that needs to be corrected, and I'm prepared to do this when I go to Washington, is to rewrite that bill, don't ask, don't care, don't tell and don't care, knock off the third-party notification. That's what needs to happen. We need to fix it that way, and young men and women that are gay can serve. I have a gay brother. I love him to death, but I told him, I don't want you in the United States Navy.
Scott Rigell.
I think it was an example, and yet another example of really an egregious example of judicial overreach. I don't support the opinion of the court. I respectfully say that. I know from being in the Marine Corps Reserves, I got off that bus at age 18 at Parris Island. I wanted to be like my dad, and who was a Marine, and I'm awfully proud of my son, Justice. He's a third-generation Marine. The military environment is so profoundly different than a civilian environment. There were just no walls. There was nothing in the restrooms. There were no stalls. It just was it's really bizarre. When you first experience it, it's quite different. So for those reasons, I think that don't ask, don't tell. It seemed to be working. There have been some reasonable modifications not that long ago that I thought, those seemed prudent to me. Those seemed like they were steps in the right direction. But at the same time, I do think it was not right for Congress to vote I believe it was this past summer, to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And you can find out where the congressman voted on that. But they voted to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell prior to, and in my view, as I read it, over the objection of the senior military officers of our country who said, let's wait until this report comes out in December. And they acted preemptively. In my view, they voted to repeal that without waiting for the results from the report that comes out in December. And I didn't think that was appropriate.
All right, Congressman Nye.
I think that this should be a decision that we make through the legislative process, not by a judge's decision. And I have to point out, Scott got it wrong. We actually voted in the House to begin a process of changing the policy of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But the way we set up the vote was I voted to allow the military to do their review, wait till the review completed, which is supposed to be at the end of this year, and then the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs would have to certify that the policy could be changed without hurting military readiness for it to go forward. That's the way we set up the change. I think that's very sensible. That's what our nation's top 2 military men, both uniformed and civilians, said they wanted us to do. Secretary Gates and Chairman Mullen said it's time to change this policy. They talked to the folks in the military about it. They came to that decision, told us that in hearings. I agree with them. I think it is time to change it. I have the greatest deal of respect for anybody, any American, whatever their identity, who makes the decision to put on a uniform of this country and put their life on the line to make sure I'm safe every day and every night. I have a lot of respect for anybody who makes that decision. I have recently been in the field. I spent most of 2007 in Iraq. I talked to a lot of soldiers, a lot of service people from all branches. What do you think about this? Most of them said to me, look, we're out in the field. We think we know who in our units could be gay. We'd rather just be honest with each other and get our job done. That's what's important to us. And I think that I'm listening to them and responding to what our nation's top military folks have said. And I did support a process which would change this policy over time, over the course of giving the military a chance to do their review and then make sure that our nation's top military leaders have said that they can make that change consistent with military readiness.
Let me ask you about the health care bill for a second, because